Was there one more question down the back?
Yeah, I think Hallie over there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, in response to what you just said and your response, and just linking up what you said, in terms of a response that the government should put forward to the Copenhagen conference is definitely the soil carbon issue, because this sort of prevents a solution, and if you like, it comes very close to a silver bullet, because what's too much in the atmosphere is actually lacking in the soil. It has been degrading over the last 150 years in New Zealand and over a much longer period in other places of the country. Soil carbon is essential as a means to store water in the soil, to exchange, and for plants to exchange nutrients and water long term. So it's a key element, and if we can get agriculture to play once again be a major driver of putting soil carbon back into the soil, then we'll achieve a whole lot of environmental problems aside from reducing the soil, from reducing the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. And yeah.
I think you're right. I think it is an important thing, and I think it's important the research is done so that we can actually quantify well how much that is. But I would still say that will help, but it's certainly, I'd be surprised if it was enough to offset all of the methane. So I think it's one of the things that we can do, but it's not going to solve all of our problems in New Zealand.
Probably only got time for one more question, so who feels that theirs is the most important?
You spoke about a 2 to 2.5 degree increase as sort of a threshold for really bad things to happen as opposed to not so bad things. But that requires a parts per million concentrations of about 450 parts per million. As I'm sure you're aware, James Hansen and others have spoken of a 300 part per million target as really being the only safe target. I wonder if you could comment on that.
Yeah, you're quite right. Hansen has made those comments. The problem is that, well, not really the problem. Hansen is probably at one end of the people that are arguing about this, but he's a very well-respected scientist. So you can't just, neglect what he's saying. I guess, on the other hand, the sorts of things we're talking about are huge challenges for the world. And it's not as if, less than 2 degrees is good and more than 2 degrees is bad. The 2 degrees compared to pre-industrial, or 1.5 or so compared to the beginning of this century, is based on the science that was put together by the IPCC, and the kind of consensus across the scientific community kind of has developed as the number that people have talked about. But that's not to say that there won't still be significant risks there. I guess my view is that aiming for 2 degrees is a hell of a lot better than aiming for 3 degrees or 4 degrees. There may still be significant risks, but at least if we could head towards that, that would be a very good start. But I'm not claiming it's going to reduce all of the risks by any means.
Thank you very much, Dr. David Wratt. Please continue. Now it's the hands-on part of the evening where you can make a pledge at the Code Red table and also access program demonstrations that are being offered by, for example, Cawthron Institute, the Business Footprint Calculator, the Sustainable Business Network, Get Sussed, and Offset the Rest, the Gold Standard Carbon Credit. So make a pledge, write it on your business card or a piece of paper, and that's along with your name, and then you can put them in the appropriate hat at the Code Red table, and you're entered into a draw that Dr. David Wratt will make. Yes.
So thanks, Doctor, for coming down to Nelson to participate in the opening of the Code Red event. What are you hoping people will take away from this event?
Oh, well, I guess really two things. I mean, I'm very encouraged by what's going on, and I think people pledging to do something themselves or for their businesses to reduce emissions is a very, very positive thing to do. I think both in terms of, if we want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the world as a whole, that's built up by actions of individual people and companies. So I think what's happening here is really important. I guess I hope it will spread around New Zealand. So I'm very encouraged by what's happening, and I hope it goes well.
Oh, great. Now, and for you as a scientist, I'm sure there's a whole range of things that are very important to you in the issues. But if you step outside of being a scientist, for you as a person, how does this affect you as a person?
Well, I guess the thing I'm really concerned about is not so much what's going to happen to me in the next few years. You know, I'm getting towards the end of my career. But what I'm concerned about is what all of this means for my children and grandchildren and their children. What sort of world we're going to leave for people behind us. And I'm also really concerned about the vulnerable parts of the world, the Pacific Islands, for example, where a metre or so of sea level would cause just huge problems for them. So I think, we're essentially putting back into the atmosphere the carbon dioxide that it took a huge amount of time to turn into coal and oil, and we're just putting it all back very rapidly. And I think what we need to do as human beings is live in a much more sustainable way.